Ali Cupper, independent member for Mildura. Great to have you with us on Flow again.
Thanks, Ricky. Good to be here.
How is your community holding up? You had your cluster in Mildura recently. How have they got through the recent lockdown, which is thankfully now lifted?
Yeah, look, people are frustrated and worn down, and it's just, it's difficult really to know how else to describe it. It's just this constant roller coaster that we've been on since March last year. And we just desperately need light at the end of the tunnel. We know that the light at the end of the tunnel is vaccination. We need herd immunity. There's two ways you can get herd immunity. You can let a virus run wild through your communities and wait till everyone gets it and deal with the mass casualties, but eventually build, for those who survive, have an immunity against it. Or you can vaccinate everybody. There's different opinions as to which one would be better, but my preference would be to vaccinate everybody. And so that's the message. We can be, based on the modelling of all of the national chief health advice, we can be out of this by Christmas. No more rolling lockdowns after Christmas. If everyone's vaccinated, doesn't mean there won't ever be a lockdown again, perhaps, because it is a virus and there may be mutations. But for the most part, we do have that hope and that capacity to get out of this sort of lifestyle of rolling lockdowns by Christmas.
And I've appreciated being able to liaise with your office about the Sunraysia Football and Netball League, among other things. It's a small issue for some people, but for people passionate about their sport and having something to be positive and cheer about, they've just had a rolling situation, haven't they, of just getting on top of what they can and can't do across the borders.
Oh, look, yes. I mean, community sport is such an important layer of community well-being. It's more than just sport, and particularly in regional areas and particularly in tiny communities. So I've been doing a lot of work with Murrayville, right on the South Australian border. The South Australians, we know that the New South Wales border restrictions have been tough. But they've got nothing on the South Australian border restrictions. Like, those restrictions at certain times were brutal and I believe indefensible. But anyway, so Murrayville, they were told only last week that, because of the Victorian restrictions, they wouldn't be able to cross the border into Pinaroo to play the rest of the season. So their league were talking to them about being out altogether for the whole rest of the season, and that's, it's awful. Community sport's been a massive problem.
The lockdown and the lifting of the lockdown, we spoke with Emma Keeley, Nationals MP for Lowan, one of your electoral neighbours, about the situation. She tried to link you to the Reason Party, saying that the Reason Party supported the emergency powers that are enabling this lockdown, but you're not associated with the Reason Party at this point in time?
Look, I was in a coalition with Fiona Patton, which was designed, like all coalitions are about this, including the Live Nat coalition, is about maximising the strategic value of your advocacy, for your community. So I don't have the balance of power in the lower house, but Fiona had it in the upper house. So that was the background to a coalition with Reason. In relation to the state of emergency, these things are incredibly political and challenging to negotiate. You have advice from all sorts of high-level players, including people with high levels of medical qualifications and epidemiologists and people who are the best medical experts in the world. They were saying that we needed these sorts of parameters to be able to keep people safe.
Yeah.
We tried to, when I was briefly, working with Fiona collaboratively in the Reason Coalition, tried to get concessions for the regions and couldn't. As a result of that, I didn't vote for the state of emergency. It was the renewal at that point. There's been 2 votes on a state of emergency, and I voted against both of them because I felt that we needed more flexibility and a bit more democracy in them. So I think Emma would find that we're on the same page with that issue, that in both cases the state of emergency laws weren't what they should have been, and there needed to be something more in the regions, foreshadowing with the traffic light systems or a deliberate effort to try and keep regions out to the greatest extent possible. Among most governments across Australia anyway, there is more that unites us than divides us, even across party lines. So I know Emma's, a National Party MP, The coalition in Victoria has a certain approach and view, because they're in opposition to, the ALP, and they probably need to play that sort of that role of challenging and holding to account, scrutinising and all of that sort of stuff. But when you look at things from a bird's eye view, every state government, regardless of their colours, and including the federal government, made a decision at the beginning of last year to say we are not going to be a country that tolerates mass casualties out of this. We are going to have rules. And if it's going to necessitate border lockdowns, if it's going to necessitate restrictions, we're going to go there, because we do not want thousands of cases. We don't want tens of thousands of deaths. We don't want hundreds of thousands of deaths. We made that decision collectively as a nation because there's a certain value we place on life. Now, when you get down to the nitty-gritty about how those rules actually look, obviously there's been all sorts of argument and debate and, remonstration about that, and that's fine. That's politics. That's the process of public policy, especially in such a dynamic environment as a pandemic, which we're all unfamiliar with. But look, I think that the key thing at this point is to acknowledge, there's been a whole lot of politics around this and a whole lot of pain. Point is, there is a way out. And the message I think all politicians and all community leaders need to be sending is that we can be out of this, at least in terms of the roller coaster it's been, by Christmas, if everyone who is eligible to get a vaccine gets a vaccine. It's how we got out of polio. It's how we got out of whooping cough. It's how we're going to get out of COVID, and that's vaccination.
All right, Ali, thanks for speaking with us today on Flow.
Thanks so much, Ricky.